Welcome back to the Card Pool. I'm your host, Kyle.
And I'm Stu.
And once again, we are looking at the set Alliances, going all the way back in the Wayback Machine in 1996. And today, the money cards are up for our look today.
Yes, Mr. Peabody.
Exactly.
So these are the cards that we were not allowed to select, but we feel like you should know about them if you don't know about them already.
You probably do, but hey.
But I definitely do not. Yeah. So this has been a learning journey for me for all of this. That's why we kind of started it. But we're going to start off with the most expensive card that was ever printed out of Alliance, at least as of now.
Indeed we are. So number one on our list here for $88, yikes, is Force of Will. Now I'm sure if you've been playing Magic for any length of time, you probably know this card.
Or you've heard of it, you've played on you, or whatever.
Exactly. It's 5 mana, 3 generic, and 2 blue for an instant, and yes, it's a counterspell. So you can pay 1 life and exile a blue card in your hand from the game instead of paying its mana cost, and it counters target spell. That's really all it does. It's a counter spell that can be free. And that's the whole point of why this is such a staple.
Yeah, it's used in a lot of formats. It's a legacy, it's a CEDH, modern, anything that can use it, uses it.
Anything from casual to competitive can use this. Usually this is just a CEDH card. Like, you need free counter spells, and this is basically where that comes in. And it's also played, like you said, in like vintage legacy type formats. You need that kind of thing to stop really stupid plays from happening.
Well, it's a turn 0 counterspell, and the thing is, like, the most iconic turn 0 counterspell is the one that can make you lose the game if you don't have enough mana for it. Pact of Negation. This one circumnavigates the loss. You just have to lose a card.
And a life, but still, come on.
Yeah, and at that point, whatever it is they're playing, you'd rather lose 2 cards and a life versus deal with this.
Yeah, no, I don't really have anything else to say. It's free counterspell.
Free counterspell.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. Play it if you can afford it. The end.
Yeah. But moving on to number 2. Now, this is a really cool card. I use this land. I love this land. It's called Lake of the Dead, and boy, is that artwork sweet. Now, this is a land, when it comes into play, you have to sacrifice a swamp. Otherwise, you sacrifice this. And it has 2 tap effects, one of which is it can produce 1 black mana, or you can sacrifice an additional swamp to produce 4 black mana. And, you don't have to be a math whiz right there to realize, you may have lost 2 swamps, but you got 4 mana out of it. That's still net positive.
It is, and there was a whole cycle of these lands where, when they enter the battlefield, you sacrifice a land, and they give you varying degrees of power bonuses. This is by far and away the best one.
And the main reason why is because of Urborg, the one that makes it so that all lands are swamps. In addition, you can go ahead and lose any land you want. Some that like to be sacrificed, go ahead, pop that one. It's not a swamp, but now it is. And you just go ahead and you get unfathomable amounts of lands.
And again, just like every other card like this, Crucible of Worlds makes this even more insanely broken, because you can just get those lands back.
Yeah.
Who cares, It's a very, very powerful piece of ramp, even with those kind of preconditions.
It feels bad depending on, like, if you start running out of swamps and now you don't have a lot of colored mana. But again, if you're using that much mana for it, you're trying to use it to get rid of problem stuff, and what it does is great.
Yeah, and again, if you're playing, in my opinion, at the very least, if you are playing mono black, this is another must-play staple.
Oh yeah, and I'd say even black-green.
Probably.
Golgari, I'd say you could definitely make room for this.
Oh, definitely.
So now at number 3,
yes,
this is a wall of text, and Kyle is definitely taking it.
I'm gonna read from the errated version. So number 3 on this list for $40 is Helm of Obedience, and again, this is another kind of infamous combo card. But what does this do? It's a 4 mana artifact that has an ability, tap X and the helm itself. Target opponent mills a card, then repeats this process until a creature card or X cards, they X in the cost, have been put into the graveyard in this way, whichever comes first. If 1 or more creatures were put into the graveyard this way, sacrifice Helm of Obedience and put 1 of them onto the battlefield under your control. And of course, X can't be 0.
And it's so good that they have an oracle for this, because, some of these old cards, yikes.
Yeah, so the bottom line is, if you're not doing anything broken with this, it becomes, you mill somebody for X, like top X cards of their deck, you hit a creature, you take it, okay, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
But the way this becomes really busted is if you pair it with something like a Rest in Peace or a Leyline of the Void or anything that stops things from going to the graveyard and exiles them instead. That then becomes tap basically like 1 mana, target player exiles deck. Yeah, and that's, you win the game, you know? It's just, you win the game.
Yeah, you do.
That's all there is to it.
And that's the main thing, because the way it's worded is since none of the cards
are going to the graveyard.
They never hit, then it never works, and now you will never play.
And you just mill your deck, and yeah, good luck winning after that.
The good thing is it's target player, not all players. Because, well, sure, if somebody has the Jace, they would do this, I win, regardless, you all lose, yada, yada, yada. But it makes it so that everyone else at the table now has the time to retaliate and take out this problem, which is kind of arch enemy at that point.
It really is, yeah. But again, like I said, this is mainly a money card because of that insanely busted combination that a lot of people do make use of when you're getting a little more cutthroat and competitive.
Oh,
so
100%.
Yeah, be careful around this. It's very good.
But moving on to our next card. At number 4 for about 23 bucks, we have Thawing Glaciers. Now this is a land, and we should be able to get an image of it soon. There it is. Bam! Thawing Glaciers. Now this is a land, it comes into play tapped, and then when it is untapped, you can go ahead and tap 1 mana and you get to search your library for a basic land, and you get it put into play tapped. And then you can go ahead and put this card right back into your hand after you've gone ahead and shuffled your deck. That's the short version of it.
Yeah.
So the really good thing about this is it makes it so that you can go ahead and find and tutor lands without it really ruining your play style. Some decks have a hard time going ahead and getting lands into play. Mono Blue is not really the best at that. They can draw cards, but you know if they aren't drawing the ones that have lands, they're not really going to be able to push this envelope.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that this card is so slow, but if for what it does, it kind of has to be. Otherwise, it would be, you would go on the other side of the scale and it would be really broken. So yes, it comes into play tapped and it goes back to your hand every time you use it. And yes, it doesn't produce any mana on its own, but consistent ramp like that, especially for decks that don't really have it, this is another, I mean, I would say for me personally, this might be like a, you know, one of those like mono-color deck staples, unless you're green.
Unless you're green.
If you're green, you don't care, but if you're anything else, maybe.
Well, maybe white, because you have stuff like land tax and things like that, where you can still go ahead and be able to get some lands.
Yeah, but white's terrible, so I'll take any advantage I can get.
But this is still something like, all right, let me just go ahead and get this to work. Now, this works really well in landfall as well. You go ahead, you play this as tap, or it goes ahead, gets this. Like, you can keep going ahead for 1 mana. Let's just go ahead and get another land into play tap. It's pretty nice, pretty good. And again, it's consistent. This isn't really a threat. This is just really good to sink your mana into if you have excess lying around, if it's late game, or if you need to get that gas going in the early part, this will get you there.
And imagine something like an Amulet of Vigor, you know, making sure this comes into play untapped.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
right.
then adding an Azusa or something else to the equation. Wow, that's going to get crazy really fast, guys.
Yeah, so it has varying levels of speed. But
Yes,
moving
it
on
does.
to number 5, we have, well,
I'll just go ahead and pronounce this one. Felder Griff.
No, it's Felder Griff. I know the correct saying this one.
So this one is $12 for a actual legendary hippo. Yes, you heard that right.
It is.
It's tricolor, so it costs 1 colorless and then a white, a blue, and a green, putting it in the Bant Shard.
Yep.
So it's a 4/4 as well. 4/4 for 4, not bad. Has 3 different abilities. You can tap a white to give it flying until the end of the turn and have target opponent gain 2 life. You can tap a blue to return Felder Griff to its owner's hand and have target opponent draw a card, or you can tap a green to give it trample until end of the turn and create a 1/1 green hippo token under target opponent's control. So this is kind of, it's iconic because this was the original group hug commander.
The happy hippo.
It was a group hug commander in all the right colors for that. And it's basically like, what are you really doing with this? I don't know, but it's just fun to give other people stuff, I guess.
Now, this is the one where I call it the two-faced friend. Like, sure, he's there helping you until he stabs you in the back.
Well, yeah, and of course, group hug decks are all about, you know, playing nice until you assemble some kind of game-winning combo or some similar thing. But this was the original group hug commander,
100%.
and it's still pretty iconic and well-known just because of how goofy it is.
And the thing is like, it's kind of hard to fight this player, and the reason why group hug decks work is because they start helping other players, and it's like, well, hey, I'll let you draw a card. Can you handle this? Or like, I'll give you this. Can you handle this? But like, the thing is, it's kind of like when somebody plays those cards, like, hey, do you want this value? You have to say no. Everyone just has to know you don't say yes to this. They're not real gifts. They're giving you trinkets. Don't accept it. You have to attack the hippo. You have to. You just got to get rid of that player.
But you won't.
You will. But the thing is, like, there's always the one player that's going to be like, guys, it's so fun over here. I'm having a great time. It's like, nah, dude, you're being lied to.
All right, well, what's our next one, Stu?
At number 6, we are looking at another land. I got all the lands.
Yeah.
For $11, we have
so.
Evo Excavations.
All right.
Now, when this comes into play, you have to sacrifice it unless you sacrifice an untapped island. Now, this can go ahead and tap for 1 colorless and an island, or you can go ahead and tap 1 in it and look at the top card of your library, and you can put that card on the bottom if you want. So it's a free scry, pretty much, for 1 mana. This is really good for obvious reasons. It's a way to get it so you can net more mana. However, yeah, you will have to sacrifice a land, but, this produces for 2, so if you go ahead and you untap lands to get more mana for them, this is a great way to go ahead and get extra value.
And notably, it doesn't come into play tapped, so you can do any one of those things immediately. I mean, yes, it is kind of steep to have to, quote-unquote, lose a land drop and sacrifice a land, but you are getting 2 mana back, so it's probably not even that bad. And the adding that, scrying.
Well, you're not losing a land. You're still netting the mana.
Well, right. I mean, on the board, you're losing a land. But basically having a land version of a search for Azcanta basically is still really, really powerful.
Sure.
Like these kind of abilities on lands, like scrying and those sort of card advantage abilities, should not be underestimated.
No, especially for this one being so low cost. It is technically tap 2, scry 1. And honestly, if you have extra mana, like for example, we'll say you're a control player, you have a counter spell in your hand, but they don't play anything that you need to counter, you want to use that mana because it just feels bad. Well, why not feed it into this land and get a free scry out of it?
Exactly. I would play it. If I had access to more of these, I would play them, for sure.
And these cards sat around for the longest time just being like, cool, not sure if I need it. But everyone started to realize how good these really are, and now if you didn't pick them up, you missed out.
Yeah.
But moving on to number 7. Now this is a card. Oh my god, I like this card.
Yeah, I do too, actually. Number 7 on our list is Winter's Night. So this is $10 for this card. It is an enchantment, and it's again, tricolor card. This one's Naya, which means it is white, red, and green, and it costs 3 mana to play. Whenever a snow-covered land is tapped for mana, it produces 1 additional mana of the same type and does not untap during its controller's next untap phase. So again, this is one of those snow cards, only works with other snow cards, essentially. But this is like a really early version of something like a Mirari's Wake.
Yeah.
It essentially doubles your mana. However, it's confined to snowlands, which has potential benefits because, if you've built your deck right, your opponents won't get the advantage off it that you will because they don't have snowlands. Yes, it does affect everybody.
Yeah, it's a global enchantment.
So you have to be careful about that. However, the lands then don't untap during the next untap step. So it's like Mirari's Wake, but fair. Almost. And I'm not sure if the fairness makes it less worthwhile. I don't know. I can't tell if this card is good. I like it, but I can't tell if it's good or not.
All right. So the thing is, you can also pair this with other things that duplicate your mana. Like, you could go ahead and use a Mirari's Wake, like you said, or a Regal Behemoth, or anything else like that. So whenever you get that mana, it can be additional mana on additional mana, or like the Nyx Bloom Ancient.
Right.
So it's like, all right, I will get this explosive turn, and sure, you probably do need to go ahead and be able to be held back a little bit, because otherwise, if it was free, 3 mana to go ahead and get that early, all the other ones cost at least 5, if not a lot more, to go ahead and get this effect.
Yeah, or they give it to everybody, like a Mana Flare, just gives it to everybody. This gives it to everybody, but with, a catch to it. So maybe it doesn't give it to everybody. Most of the time, it probably wouldn't. So
we'll see. More people are using more Snowlands now because they are all reprinted. They're a lot cheaper.
I mean, if everybody had infinite money, we should all just play Snowlands instead of basics because they are just better. So
they're refreshing mana. But moving on to number 8.
Yep, go ahead.
It's a very simple card. It's called Elvish Spirit Guide. Now, this is a $10 card. It costs 3 mana, 2 generic, and a green for a 2/2 Spirits. And I think there has another caveat tabbed onto that as a creature type. But if this is in your opening hand, you can remove it from the game to add 1 green mana to your mana pool. So this is really good for being able to go ahead and get extra mana so that you can go ahead and be able to get, a head start in the game.
Turns out it's an elf, too. That's what you were thinking.
That was what it was.
It is actually an elf now. So that makes it...
They do say Elvish here and there.
Yeah,
it's not
that actually makes it that much better. Spirits are good. Elves are even better, especially, when you're in green. And this is the same as, Simeon's Spirit Guide, which was the later version of this in red. Arguably it's better in red because red needs that kind of ramp more.
Sure.
But green, I mean, hey, either way, it's still just free mana from your hand. And in a format like Commander, it's not quite as good because, just one more mana, it usually is not going to make a huge difference in the game.
Well, it depends on your hand. It depends on what you got going on. But this is more used in other formats.
Yeah, and those kind of like free mana ritual cards are good no matter what, and this just kind of gives green access to that.
Yeah, there's not a lot of them that have it for green in that regard. But yeah, so if you want something to go ahead and get some sort of big creature out, go ahead and get some sort of quick ramp.
Yeah, you're trying to get a fast start, essentially. You're banking on a fast start. That's what this is all about.
And the good thing about this is also an elf. So the good thing for that is elves usually have a lot of tribal synergy, so this isn't as dead in the hand late game. But if you don't get it in the early part, it kind of stinks.
Yeah, so it's just one of those high risk, high reward sort of cards, I guess.
But going on to number 9.
Yes, number 9 on this list, again for $10, is Fyrexian Devourer.
Oh, the Fyrexian cards.
Yes, now this is a 1/1 for 6 mana, a artifact creature. So if Fyrexian Devourer's power is ever 7 or greater, you have to sacrifice it. So how does it get there? 0. Remove the top card of your deck from the game, exile it, to put a +X counter on Fyrexian Devourer, where X is equal to that card's casting cost. So, why is this important? Once again, we are looking at yet another card that says, for with a 6 mana, exile your deck. Yeah, I mean, even if you have to sacrifice it, it doesn't matter, because you're just going to be, responding to your own triggers, exiling your entire deck. And that is the one and only reason you would care about this card.
Yeah, the only thing that would stop this is, well, if the creature gets countered, something's going on to stop activated abilities like Linvala.
Yeah, I mean, that would help, yes.
So, but yeah, that's the whole idea. I have no deck. I win the game.
Yeah, and it's even better than something like Thought Lash, like we looked at in some of the previous videos.
You bite your tongue.
Because it's an artifact. It's much, much easier to recur than an enchantment is.
Yes, but this one is 2 mana more. But we did talk about Thought Lash in our part 1, I believe. So if you want to know what we're talking about, go check that one out real quick. That'll be in the link down below.
Well, and artifacts are also way easier to just cheat into play for free or reduce their costs or do a lot of similar things.
Sure, I agree with that. And also, there's something with the power. Like, this is put a creature into play that has a certain power or whatever.
Right, exactly. As a 1/1, it's also very powerful with like a Revelark or something similar.
But you don't have to worry about colors, which is what you're saying, and it has other fun shenanigans.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, it's a powerful card. Don't like seeing it.
No, me neither, really.
But moving on to number 10, another land coming at you hard.
Yes, of course it is.
Now this is another $10 card called Kjor.
I never know how to say that KJ, so just Keldoran Outpost, I guess. Yeah.
KJ Outpost.
Yeah.
This is a land that comes into play. This is the white variant of it. You have to sacrifice a plains that is untapped. Oh, no, it doesn't say untapped. You have to sacrifice a plains, or you have to sacrifice this. It can produce 1 mana that is white, or you can go ahead and tap 2 in it to put a soldier token that is a 1/1 into play that is also white. It's just good for token generation. This is good for token decks. It doesn't have a lot of real requirements against it to go ahead and get this thing to go. You just need a plains.
Yep. Unlike the last one, it does kind of put you down on a mana because you do have to sacrifice 1 land for another land that doesn't give you more mana. However, the land that you sacrifice does not have to be untapped.
Yeah.
So you can tap and float 1 mana and then sacrifice that land to play this land. So that turn, you won't necessarily be behind.
Yeah, the next turn is when you'll be a mana short on the other players.
However, as Stu said, the reason this is good is because token making on lands should, again, never be underestimated. A constant source of token generation in the little permanents that lands that usually don't get touched all that much by other cards.
Yeah, usually we care more about enchantments or planeswalkers or any of the other fun stuff.
People aren't going to think about lands so much, but this is, again, if it frees up a spell slot in your deck, it's worth playing, and that's exactly why these lands are good.
And also, they're really good for the point where it's like, let's say somebody has a generous gift or, a beast within. Making them waste it on a land that does something like this, it's really good at drawing out that stuff because it's like, how much are you really losing for that? You're not, but you're really forcing them to play a card that they don't want to waste on something. But to take away this kind of value, you kind of need that unless you're running something that has land destruction. And you should run a little bit, but again, this isn't always assessed as a threat.
No.
And
I certainly wouldn't.
That's definitely the part that gives it its value. But that is going to conclude part 3 of Alliance. Now, I actually really like this set a lot. I don't know about you.
It was surprisingly good. It really was.
And that is going to be wrapping it up on here. If you like what we do,
of course, yeah, follow us all over social media. So we're on Reddit, where you can find all of our newest videos. We're on Tapped Out, where you can see all the deck lists that we like to play. You can find our latest updates on Facebook and Twitter, and you can always contact us via Gmail. All of that at the handle The Card Pool. So if you like what you're doing, like us, subscribe us, follow us, check us out.
And ring the bell. That'll help as well. I am Darkness.
Nice. That's pretty good, yeah.
But until then, I'm Stu.
And I'm Kyle.
And we'll see you next time at the Card Pool.
We've got all kinds of merchandise ideas now.
Yeah, well, they're all bad ideas. Well, they're good
They're
bad.
not bad
They're
ideas.
good
Speak
bad.
for yourself. Making that money.
Yeah. That's just